supernatural?
The National Center for Science Education Director, Eugenie Scott, told me that her organization does not support self-organization because it is confused with intelligent design. That is, design beyond laws, as Michael Bay, a biochemist at Lehigh University, describes it. NCSE also pays lucrative fees to conference speakers who keep the lid on self-organization by beating the drum for Darwinian natural selection. NCSE and its cronies completely demonize the intelligent design community, even though those who agree evolution happened, even those who agree that evolution happened. Religion's not the target, since even the National Academy of Sciences embraces religion. So it seems the real target is those who fail to kneel before the Darwinian theory of natural selection and who prevent maybe the further fattening of the Darwinian industry tapeworm. And NAS and NASA /NAI, in their respective publications, Science, Evolution, and Creationism and Astrobiology Primer, have also kept out any discussion of self-organization. What's your response to this? Why do you think such organizations continue to feed unenlightened information to the public at public expense?
Yeah. Well, although I may not use all the terms that you used, I would have to agree with you. If you look at the Pennsylvania legal case on the teaching of evolution, there was a very solid identification of evolution with Darwin's theory of evolution. And I think that this is very reinforced in the public mind that if you believe in evolution, you believe in Darwin's theory of evolution because it's the same thing. And if you don't believe in Darwin's theory, you must believe in something supernatural. This is really not at all valid. And I think it's a big mistake because I think that we know now that there are nonlinear and kind of what I call saltational mechanisms of embryonic development that could have definitely contributed, and we're virtually certain they did, to evolution. So that Darwin, who said that if any organ is shown to have formed by not by small increments, but by jumps, his theory is therefore wrong. Well, people, instead of moving beyond and expanding Darwin's ideas to include things like self-organization, just bring other mechanisms into it, they adhere to this kind of Darwinian orthodoxy where everything has to be incremental. And when you're confronted with something very complex like the bacterial flagella or something like that, people say that it had to have arisen in an incremental fashion. But there are other mechanisms involving self-assembly and involving self-organization that could potentially explain these things as long as one did not seek purely incremental explanations. And physics and the theories of self-organization show us that those mechanisms are there. And so I think it's an unfortunate error that the advocates of evolution are making by adhering so closely to this incrementalist Darwinian dogma.
What is the danger in mediocre science being pushed on the public, aside from the wasting of public funds at a time of serious economic downturn in America?
Yeah, well, it seems to me that if somebody is kind of predisposed to be skeptical, perhaps because they're religious or something, and therefore are told that this thing had to have evolved by increments, like, for example, the vertebrate column had to have evolved incrementally. They may not be persuaded by it because it's not true, even though their motivation not to be persuaded might come from their religion or something like that. Then scientists who are working on this embryonic mechanism have shown that there are non-incremental mechanisms that produce these things. And therefore, everybody that's been assuring this skeptic that it's all incremental turn out to be wrong. It really undermines a confidence in science if people are always being subjected to what we call hand-waving arguments that this had to have had an incremental origin.
Sam Smith of Progressive Review has said the following: scientists are also subject to that most pernicious of academic temptations, the desires and biases of their funders. He refers to the distorting role of the Defense Department, agribusiness, and pharmaceutical corporations in supposedly objective science. Would you comment on that?
Well, I think that's true. I don't know how pertinent it is to the evolution debates. I don't think that the pharmaceutical companies have a role in kind of steering away from self-organization. In fact, if it's true and you can patent it and make money on it, they'll chase after that. So I don't think that the businesses, although they do have this grip on scientific development, I don't believe that they're ideological in that way. I think that the ideology really comes from kind of entrenched old science, and I think that people who are educated in biology with no sense of physical sciences, I think that it's really the inertia and the kind of obduracy comes from a side of the scientific establishment rather than from industry.
As a common language has begun to be created by you and your Altenberg colleagues in an effort to bring various scientific fields together, will the public's need to know be taken into consideration as well? Do you envision a kind of science ease happening, a plain speak on the order of legalese, the attempt by the legal community to simplify document language because law firms have gone global?
I think that there are people working in all sides of science that want to communicate with the public. I think that the loudest voices and sometimes the more facile and appealing writers have been kind of retailing old ideas, unfortunately. I think that as kind of younger people come into the field that are more open-minded, some of them will also have a facility with public communication. And I think that that newer ideas will get out and people will understand that evolution happens, but it doesn't necessarily happen the way Darwin said it happens. Sometimes it does, but it happens other ways as well. And I think that it will be to the benefit of everybody if evolution is acknowledged and incorporated into the broader culture, which it isn't now. It's kind of in a losing battle. I think the only way that can happen is by not communication of bad ideas, but communication of good ideas.
But can it be communicated in a simpler way?
Oh, definitely.
Can the language, can the jargon be broken down so that the public can get a handle on it? I mean, that seems to be a problem for the public.
Right. I think that you can use metaphoric means of communication. Like I tried to do it with talking about water having waves and having vortices and it being something different from the molecules themselves that the water is made of. But I think people are responsive to that sort of thing. They're more responsive to that sort of thing than to people pointing to a complex organism and saying that it had to have been built up in incremental means. People don't buy that because it's not true.
How much of a makeover of the